The headlights sliced through the HOA gala tent like a knife rain, beating time on the canvas, everyone frozen with shrimp skewers halfway to their mouths as my late father's deep green 1970 Barracuda rolled right down the aisle between folding chairs, the big cam loping like a heartbeat. At the wheel sat Chase Whitaker in a tux a size too small, grinning like the prom king of bad ideas, while his mother, our HOA president Marla, stood at the podium waiting for applause she hadn't earned. I tapped my phone. The speakers popped, and her voice came out clean as a confession. "Good, the key's on the hook. Drive it straight to the gala. We'll file it as a donation tomorrow." And the whole tent breathed in at once like it had just remembered oxygen. My name is Caleb Grant. Chief on the badge, just Caleb on the block. And when my wife Nora and I moved to Cedar Crest Meadows outside Raleigh, I didn't hang the title on the mailbox. I just wanted the quiet, the small stuff, the sound of sprinklers and kids on scooters, the garage half open with a box fan complaining, and that Barracuda sleeping under a soft gray cover. It was my father's car, and his fingerprint is trapped somewhere under the clear coat. That's not poetic, it's just the truth. And maybe that's why I kept my temper holstered as long as I did. At the welcome cookout, where the potato salad sweated and the raffle basket looked like a dare, Marla came at me with that clipboard hugged to her chest like a badge and said, "Mr. Grant, Section 9B, non-operational vehicles in public view, 7 days to comply." And her son, Chase, leaned past her to peek into my garage, like a kid at a candy store he hadn't paid for. "That's a Hemi car, right?" he blurted, and she pressed a hand to his chest without breaking eye contact with me. This is a violation, not a sales pitch, and I smiled. The smile you use to keep your voice from starting a war. Told her I'd read the bylaws, and we could handle things like neighbors. "Our portal is very persuasive," she said. "Sweet as bleach." 7 days later, tickets started breeding. One for excess glare from chrome tucked under the wiper. Another for visual clutter stapled to my door at dawn. And when I checked the portal, there was nothing, just a clean ledger and a dirty feeling. And the treasurer's name. Douglas Parr was even misspelled on one envelope. Pear, which told me everything about how careful these folks really were. I started a folder labeled Whitaker, and I logged toner flakes and timestamps like it was my second job. Then 7 a.m. sharp. A hard knock rattled the door, the kind that makes you wish for coffee and earplugs. Nora looked over her mug and mouthed, "Showtime." I opened up, and there was Marla with the clipboard like a scepter, and Chase vibrating at her shoulder. "Caleb," she said, dropping the mister like we were friends. "Now we've reached the end of the line, your vehicle is being impounded." I leaned on the frame and asked on what grounds, and she tapped 9B again, like a metronome. Said a friend at DMV ran the plate. Said the registration status made it essentially abandoned in public view. And then, with that little smile she kept for special occasions, told me she had reported a stolen vehicle at my address. Yeah, that happened. 2 patrol cars slid to the curb, boots hit wet concrete, and Sergeant Roy Bishop stepped up with a rookie Eli Garner. The kid I'd pinned a badge on 6 months back, and Roy said, "Sir, we've got a report of a stolen Plymouth Barracuda," and Marla pointed with her whole body. That one under the cover, and Eli's hand hovered near his holster, because nerves don't care how smart you are. I moved slow, took out my wallet, not the license. The gold shield caught the morning light with it, and said, "Sergeant Bishop, let's handle this properly." And the color drained. The posture. Straightened Chief Grant. Yes, sir, and I asked him to document a false report and misuse of 911, while Chase tried to look taller, and the curtains across the street twitched like nosy birds. You know what I mean. Bullies don't retreat. They regroup. And the next week, my driveway sprouted bright pink chalk arrows, a cartoon of a car traced inches too close to the sidewalk. I brought out the tape measured 6.5 feet from the curb, where code requires 5, took photos, logged the city citation number. Then the drone arrived at dawn, hovering by the bedroom window like a mechanical mosquito with entitlement issues. Nora put on her headset, and 10 minutes later said, DJI Mavic. Pings from 203 Larkspur. The Whitakers, 17 incursions in 48 hours. Peeping and nuisance don't love that. And we both smiled. The kind of smile that says the law still has teeth. I didn't swing low. I stayed lawful, and a little petty, reprogrammed the sprinklers to arc high when the drone dipped below the roofline. And the next morning, 3 heads popped up and smacked it with curtains of water, sent it wobbling home like a wet crow. I read the entire 96-page bylaw packet. On a Saturday, highlighted. Until my hand cramped. Found a landscaping clause about native species, filed an anonymous complaint with photos because Marla's prize roses were a French hybrid, and 2 weeks later, a crew dug them out, while she shouted about civilization in a satin robe. I printed a new friendlier car cover that said, "Project in progress. Ask me about it." And neighbors did men who smelled like cut grass and Saturday. And I told them about my father and the Hemi, and how I wanted it running clean by spring. And you could feel a shift. The community didn't love the clipboard anymore. It loved the story. Then Hank Ramirez. The handyman across the way, knocked with panic in his eyes, told me his old F-150 was gone. Tools and all the kind of theft that steals a man's morning and his week. And the week before, he'd gotten a notice about a quarter-sized oil spot, and he thought it was just noise. And I made calls to the city impound and the big towers and got a lot of nothing. And Nora cross-referenced the HOA complaints against police reports, and a pattern bloomed like mold. 10 older cars in 12 months, all owned outright, all towed for small or invented violations, all never recovered, and every tow authorized by Tri-County Recovery, a company with a P.O. box for an address, and a parent under Greenfield Partners, the developer. Marla was boosting for 4 new phases. The Mustang, the Barracuda, all of it, the tickets and the chalk and the drone, weren't trophies, they were cover. We needed proof that would stand up when someone started throwing Latin in a courtroom. So on a night that smelled like rain, Roy met me in plain clothes. Nora looped cameras at Safe Box Storage and gave us a 5-minute blind spot on the northwest corner. And Unit D12 had fresh scuffs near the lock, and Roy picked it in 30 seconds, with the kind of careful hands that belong to a patient man. The smell hit first hot rubber and metal shavings, then the shapes. Hank's truck with the doors off and the engine on a chain license plates from 5 states nailed to plywood, like someone's idea of art. A folding table with forged HOA tow authorizations, clean and crisp, and under the stack, a binder of blank titles and a handheld VIN embosser. And on one authorization, a neat signature I'd seen on envelopes with fake fines, Douglas Parr. And I took pictures on my phone and on Roy's, and we closed the door and walked away without stealing a single molecule, because truth without a warrant is trivia. Then the case turned itself. Eli the rookie called me, whispering that he'd spotted a Tri-County truck slipping behind the Greenfield model home, and I told him to send me the location and back out now. And the call died in static, and Nora said his phone was pinging in the cul-de-sac and not moving. And that's the moment when an investigation becomes a rescue and the clock starts screaming. And I told Roy 10 minutes. No, sirens, meet me at Mill Road. And we moved through a skeleton street of half-built houses, mud grabbing our boots, the model home lit like a false welcome, and the backslider was unlocked because arrogance is sloppy. Inside, a man, built like a deep freezer, watched an action movie with a beer in his hand, and I stepped behind him and put a mag light into the hinge behind his ear, and he folded. And down the hall, I heard Eli trying to keep his voice steady. I'm just a cop, saw a suspicious vehicle, and a wiry voice said, you saw too much. And I pointed to a stupid fake flower vase on a little table, and then the wall. Roy threw the vase. It shattered loud. The wiry guy stepped into the hall with a gun. Too loose in his hand, I kicked the door. Roy cuffed him like a professional, and I cut Eli loose and grabbed the back of his neck, the way my first training officer did, and said, right now, you are the victim of a kidnapping, say what happened, the rest we do by the book. The book moved fast. Warrants searches a desktop with templates for fake tickets, a spreadsheet of stolen cars with neat columns referencing Greenfield project codes, a toner match from the HOA printer to the cardstock, in my Whitaker folder, a money trail where development funds hit the HOA and 15% slid into Par's quiet account, cash out to Tri-County, and transfers to Marla labeled consulting. And it wasn't a puppet show. It was a partnership dressed like community service. I didn't just want them caught. I wanted the neighborhood to see the hand in the cookie jar. 3 days later, with the HOA gala on the calendar theme, Building Our Future, I leaked a rumor that I was finally giving up, and listing the Barracuda took photos in the driveway like I was posting an ad, hung a spare key on a magnetic hook just inside the garage, where anyone nosy enough could spot it, because entrapment is when you invent the crime. This was when you let greed do what greed always does. Nora pulled the AM radio and tucked a voice-activated mic behind the trim, wired a Jeeps into the Speedo, and we had a clean monitoring order off the kidnapping case, so when the garage sensor tripped and the GPS rolled, and Marla kept glancing at her phone with that little curl of a smile, I just sipped my water and waited for the storm to break. You know what I mean. The car slid through the tent flap like a movie entrance gone wrong. Chase at the wheel. People gasping because they knew that paint. That idle. And I tapped my phone and played Marla's recorded instruction for the whole room. And the CEO took 2 steps toward a side exit and met 2 off-duty officers in rented tuxes who were not there for the chicken. And Chase panicked and goosed the throttle, and a Hemi on vinyl is a wild animal. Chairs skated, a centerpiece went under a tire. I grabbed the handle, yanked the door, pulled him out by his collar. The engine coughed and settled like it was bored. Roy came in with 4 uniforms and a voice like a final bell and said, Marla Whitaker, you are under arrest for conspiracy insurance fraud and grand theft auto. And the cuffs clicked and the tent felt heavier and Par folded in the parking lot like a lawn chair. And the CEO's smile finally met a place it couldn't buy. I ended it where I promised I would, at the consequence at the metal click. But I'll leave you with the itch I can't scratch. Did she become a tyrant because the rules were there, or were the rules written in a way that made someone like her inevitable? You tell me. Was I right to play it slow and legal, or should I have torn the curtain the first time she weaponized a bylaw? Have you seen a clipboard turn into a crown? Where you live in an office or a board or a small committee? that forgot its job was service, not control. And if you were under that tent, would you have cheered at the cuffs or looked away because the whole thing felt like a mirror? Drop your take in the comments. Argue with me. Tell your own HOA or office story. And if you disagree, even better. That's how we keep communities about as honest.